All right, so the combine's done, and your first kind of wave of free agency, where a number of teams were certainly very active, that's happened now. So it feels like it's a good time to come back and do an updated mock draft. And I went ahead this go round and said I'm going to break this out all the way to round 3, at least to where the Bears pick at round 3 at pick 72. For those that want the rest of round 3, I'm sorry, folks. Like, it's about time investment and how much time do I have to do this stuff. You're lucky you got to pick 72. It gives you 72 picks for you to whine, piss, moan, and bitch at me about. And I am here for every fucking bit of it, I'll tell you. But you can check out my mock draft in the description box below. All right, so let's actually talk about this. The first thing, and I typically always start with quarterbacks, and it feels cliche. It feels kind of played out, but it's the reality. Like, it's a quarterback league. You have to start there. And as far as the Titans go at this point, I'm sorry. Like, whichever quarterback you prefer, you take one of them at 1. Anybody talking about, well, they need to trade back and pick up additional picks. They should take Abdul Carter. They should do this. That's fucking dumb. Take the quarterback that you value most. Take the quarterback that you have the highest grade on, and then do everything you can to put them in a situation to succeed. Any other approach in this draft for the Tennessee Titans would be moronic. Just moronic. Now, in this case, I think it's Cam Ward that has quite a bit more physical upside, more of that dual threat type of talent. I think he makes more sense for them. The Titans need to go there at pick 1. Period. Argue with the wall. Well, they should take an Abdul Carter with the foot problem at number 1? You're out of your fucking mind. They should take Shedeur. Okay, I don't agree, but sure, take Shedeur. At least you're still taking a quarterback. And then again, go build the fuck around him. It has to be quarterback at 1. Where it gets interesting is with Cleveland at 2. You got Deshaun Watson, but you really don't because of the Achilles. They just made a trade for Kenny Pickett. Like, they absolutely could go quarterback here. I can't imagine, especially if Cam Ward was the pick at 1, I can't imagine Dion and Shedeur wanting him to go to Cleveland for any number of reasons, and who could blame him? Because again, who the hell says to themselves, I want to go live in Cleveland? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Could you imagine, right? But there's also a piece of, what are they going to do? Like, do they want to bring yet another quarterback into the fold, or do they want to go like best player available and figure out quarterback in a different manner and approach it in a different way? And in this draft, that's what I have them do. I have them taking Jackson Dart at the top of round 2 and taking Travis Hunter here at number 2. And whether it's corner or wide receiver, like Travis Hunter, I'm sure there are going to be people that rate him as the best or second best player on the board in this draft. So it'd be hard to knock the Browns for that pick. For those that always talk about best player available, take the best player available, even though a lot of times people are full of shit when it comes to that, up to and including and especially NFL teams. And most of the times they're not drafting best player available. They're drafting positions of need. They absolutely are. There are very few teams that draft best player available. You can look at the Eagles in recent years under Howie Roseman and say they draft best player available. They do it, and that's why they're successful. Which brings us to the Giants. And, I wonder, because there seems to be conflicting reports about Shedeur and how teams perceive him and his attitude and so forth. And to me, I go beyond that and I say, like, what's the special talent that Shedeur has? His arm is no better than mid. I don't think his accuracy is super out of this world. His pocket presence at times is really shaky. He's Dion's kid, but he certainly doesn't have the same level of athleticism, nor does any real level of athleticism consistently manifest within his game. I don't think his instincts, his ability to read defenses are otherworldly. I don't think his reaction time is otherworldly. Like, what's the elite talent here? That's what would give me some heartburn or some pause from drafting somebody like a Shedeur this high. I wouldn't be surprised if he potentially goes on a drop. Who knows? In this type of draft with as booty cheeks as this draft class appears to be. But for now, I've got the Giants taking him at 3 Because even if they sit there and they end up signing like a Russell Wilson or somebody, like that's not a long-term option. That's not a viable option. You got to find a guy to build around. And I could certainly see like Dion and Shedeur wanting him to go to New York and be in the New York market. What probably stands out to you here is some things in the top 10. I've got Ashton Jeanty going 6 to the Raiders. Like Pete Carroll's there. You know how much he loves to run the fucking football. And, again, in the weaker draft, they just made the trade for Geno Smith, so they've addressed quarterback. They drafted Brock Bowers last year, and that's worked out tremendously. Why wouldn't they take a guy like Jeanty, who they feel is like a top-flight elite talent, and say that he's going to be a high-level performer from day one? Like, it certainly feels possible. So a lot of Bears fans right now talking about Ashton Jeanty at number 10. My counter is, are you sure he will even fucking be there? Like, if you're talking about running back, you might be talking more Omarion Hampton at that point than you are Ashton Jeanty. I'm just saying. You might be surprised seeing Abdul Carter drop into 7. It's possible, right? Because there's the foot problem. And there might be a couple of teams that are scared off by that, especially when you're talking about taking him super high. And I get that, right? Now, he shouldn't drop too far, because if he is, then teams are probably really, really seriously overthinking it. But stranger shit has happened. Some teams draft for need. Some teams get scared off about something. They rate players differently. So, an Abdul Carter dropping to 7 would not be out of the realm of possibility here. Just like a Mason Graham dropping to 9 or 10 would certainly not be out of the realm of possibility either. It just wouldn't be. You're looking at Tyler Warren's cracking the top 10 in my mock draft for the first time. I kind of be a little cautious here of like 1 year really great production, and now you're going to take him with the top 10 pick. I don't know about all that. But, if you look at Carolina, they need pass catchers. They need weapons around Bryce Young because they really don't have anything to brag about right now. They could sit there and settle on him and say, hey, somewhere in day 2 or day 3, we can get a wide receiver, but we want the value of the tight end here. And then we get to the Bears. I've had this for several mocks, and I guess I continue to stay on it, and I might move off of it at some point. But Josh Simmons from Ohio State, I think he is probably the best left tackle prospect in this draft. And you would be talking about him in a different light if he didn't tear up his knee. He'd be being talked about as early as like maybe 2 to Cleveland or 4 to New England in his draft. I really believe that. But for the Bears, as much as they've addressed the interior of that offensive line, to sit there and forsake left tackle and run the risk of a year from now having to pay Braxton Jones $20+ million a year to be at best an average NFL left tackle is insane. Like, why would you fucking do that? This is a pick where you need to swing for the goddamn fences. That's all I'm saying. Other things that probably stand out to you, I've got Shemar Stewart a lot higher than I have in previous mock drafts. And that's not necessarily a reflection to me of like what type of player I think he is. It's just more about like the testing piece and how teams overrate that bullshit. And like, if he was such an athletic marvel, then why didn't he produce more? Right? It could be an example of a guy that gets to the NFL and he's asked to do different things that free him up more and he will be more productive. That could happen, which is why I think he'll go a little higher than his production necessitates. But there is still the question of, like, at the end of the day, you didn't fucking produce very much at college. What do you have, like a sack and a half last year? Like, at some point in time, even for the people that have gotten too focused on the fucking analytics that say, oh, it's about pressures and hurries and all this other bullshit. No, at the end of the fucking day, it is about sacks. Get home. Get to the quarterback. Just saying. As I think you go along in this class, I would expect the trenches to see a heavy focus overall on day 1. That shouldn't really be any surprise. As I start to watch these prospects more, I'll start to get a better feel for things and kind of an understanding of where I think players will fall or should fall. But other than that, I'll just talk about for the Bears here, because it's a homer thing, right, at the end of the day. I'm sure Bears fans are looking at it, and they might be okay with me mocking Josh Simmons there at 10, but maybe they would say right position, wrong player. Okay, whatever. We can have different perspectives there. But I have a feeling they'll look at the second round, and they'll feel like it runs counterintuitive to things that I've said before about the priority is still to build around Caleb Williams. The priority is offense first. Well, generally speaking, that makes sense and certainly align with that. However, you also have to read the reality of the room. And the reality of the room is when you're talking about the Bears and those 2 second-round picks, it's about getting the best possible talent that you can because, again, they need game breakers, difference makers, game changers. They don't have them, folks. So as I look at this mock second round, and if they think a Benjamin Morris can pair with a Jalon Johnson and give like a true elite 1-2 combination at corner, maybe the best tandem in the league, then that's what you fucking do. Because you could argue without the injury, like he would be going higher in the draft than he actually is. You know, no risk it, no biscuit. There is a risk reward there, but the reward could be quite handsome. Meanwhile, you look at Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, and you say, you got him really taking a linebacker there? Yeah, because Edmonds stinks and Edwards isn't really much better at this point. Like, again, this is for the long term. Why would I not fucking do that? And I mean, admittedly, part of it is just the way this mock draft played out is Caleb Johnson goes right before. Because if Caleb Johnson doesn't go 38, he's going to Chicago at pick 39. You get what I'm saying? And then Judkins goes at 40, which means that he's also not there for the Bears at 41. But yeah, like, again, different possibilities. It might not go the way you might initially think. And then you look at round 3 and Gunnar Helm, the tight end from Texas. I think there's more upside here relative to where his current mock draft position is. And for the Bears, again, you're swinging for top tier talent. And if you think Gunnar Helm has more pass catching upside in Ben Johnson's offense than a Cole Kmet, you'd be stupid not to take him at that point in round 3. So it might not be the draft that Bears fans would love or envision because they're like, where's the running back? Where's the additional depth on the interior of the offensive line? Where are the edge rushers? Where is this and where is that? The bottom line is that's all fine and good, but they got to get the best players they possibly can. And if that also happens to line up with major positions of need, so be it. But if it doesn't, so fucking be it. So you guys can take a look at my mock draft, scoring it as much as you want. Let me know what you think about it. I'll probably do another one in about 2 weeks or so. And that's because I got to start getting these scouting reports done.